Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today's video is, of course, a vintage collection video. We're going to look at some recent sales on eBay in a little while, and then I wanted to go through some information from Riv's Junctionite on Instagram. Every week, he puts out some nice data on how the Haslab is doing, comparing it to past Haslabs, and then giving his prediction. He's usually pretty accurate. So, and then I've got some other kind of thoughts on the Haslab Gunship that is currently underway. And we're going to start off with Riv's Junctionite. I don't know how you pronounce that name, but it always kind of covers Haslabs as they're in real time. And this I thought was a cool looking chart that looks at the week one final backers for the Gunship, which is the one that's highlighted in kind of white with the blue halo. That's the Gunship backers during the first 7 days. And as you can see there, it looks like it's starting to approach about 30%. And when you look at that versus the Riva Saber, the Cantina, and then the Rancor, he didn't even bother showing the Razor Crest or the Katana because the data was so far ahead, I guess, relative to these. And basically what he's trying to say is that this is kind of falling in between the Rancor and the Saber, which is what he had in his last post and what we covered last week. And so far, it's still trending that way. It's actually less than the Black Series Rancor that did not fund, and less than, or excuse me, more than Reba's lightsaber, which also did not fund. So as of right now, yikes, right? It's looking like it could not fund, but this has got one, I think, for potential to have the same experience that the Cantina did, where you have a lot of backers at the very end to push it over the edge. I would think that as of right now, it doesn't look that likely that it's going to open up any of the other tiers. And I also did pull up his kind of commentary for this, which I'll read in part. I'm not sure I need to narrate this. You can see for yourself what's happening, but if you can't, the Gunship's performance remains firmly lodged between that of the Rancor, which obviously didn't fund, and the Riva lightsaber. Is it possible it could squeak over the line? If there's a huge last day surge like the Cantina, we could see 8,500 backers. If the campaign trends more like the Rancor, you're looking at 6,000 backers. Remember, you need 8,000 in order for this thing to back. If it flops like the Saber, expect 4,000 backers, which would be, about half of what's needed. So it's not looking good right now. He also, again, rightly points out, tomorrow begins the mid-campaign doldrums, where the daily backer count drops to fairly minimal levels. And this is a really interesting point, and I would be curious to hear what you guys have to say. I think that we should drop all of this doom and gloom stuff about how this is a threat to the vintage collection if it doesn't fund. And I agree with that. I'm sure all of you all do, or most of you all do. It's not like this is going to be the death, nail in the coffin for any future Haslab vintage collection. I mean, we've had a lot of really big backers, and I think that there will be big backers for the right type of item. I think there's a lot going against this one. It being kind of a upgraded reissue on steroids, that certainly plays a factor. And, maybe the desire for something else, original trilogy related versus prequel trilogy related. Those, I think, are big factors. People seem to have wanted the sandcrawler, things like that. So I think in general that if it does end up going through, it's going to be at that 8,000 target. And I did refresh this Haslab website page from, HasbroPulse.com, where exactly this morning, as of the making of this video on August 4th, we're at exactly 2,900 backers. I would imagine by the time this video airs on Thursday, we'll be at 3,000 or slightly above that. So we'll see, but it is going to be very interesting to see how this one closes out in 35 days. One other question from Adam G., who is a Patreon member, good buddy of mine, longtime channel supporter. He was like, hey, do you think that this lat gunship, if it does back, and most likely it's going to back, around that 8,000 target number without any tier unlocks. Do you think that this lat gunship down the line will be worth worth a lot of money? Kind of what happened with the Katana sail barge versus the Razor Crest and the Ghost, which saw a lot of big backing and has a lot of them out there. And the resale prices have been dropping for those two relative to the Katana, which obviously is a big item, number one, but the resale price has been significant, over $2,000. Do you think the same thing will happen with the lat gunship? I personally do not. I don't see that happening. While it is a significant upgrade, it's about 20% larger. There was a photo somewhere comparing the two. I don't know if I pulled it up or not, but at one point I saw a photo that showed it, with a shadow of the original gunship, so you could see the difference in size. But it was about a 20% size difference, and obviously the paint apps and all that kind of stuff, the bubbles. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff related to this that is definitely better than the original Vintage Collection gunship. But I just think because it's a reissue on steroids, if you want to, be negative about it, I don't expect this thing to be worth a significant premium. Could it go up? Yeah, it could go up. I mean, I think what's really going to happen most likely is that the original issue gunship is going to come down, right? That we have enough data points for reissues bringing the original issue down. Starkiller, Ahsoka, Weequay. I mean, there's been a ton of examples where the reissue version of a figure has come out. The Republic Trooper, the expanded universe Republic Trooper, all of those led to significant declines in the original issue price, and that's probably what's going to happen with the original issue gunship. There's still going to be people that want it, but I don't see this one having some massive price premium if it does cross the finish line, even though the supply of them you would think is going to be a lot less than the Razor Crest or the Ghost, things like that. So I guess we'll see, but I just wanted to kind of touch on some points related to the gunship based on questions I receive and based on that Instagram post, but very interesting stuff all the way around. On to some recent sales, and man, look at this price for a foil example General Grievous. It looked to be in pretty clean condition, $72. I mean, that's pretty low, and I think I see why now. It did have a pretty big ding in the lower left-hand corner, and that one did sell for $72, which, for a super clean one, you're probably about $100. So basically they discounted this by about 30% based on that ding in the lower right-hand or left-hand corner. On the other end of the spectrum was this General Grievous. Admittedly, this was a buy it now from Star Wars Galaxies, which does tend to get case fresh stuff, and they price theirs really high, and they still sell because they're very, very clean examples. But this is the unpunched VC-17 General Grievous. Seller had two available. One did sell at $185, which is a good solid number. Beefy number, if you will, for a beefy character. Next up is Luke Dagobah Landing with the clear saber. Seller had two available. One did sell at $130, which, a year and a half ago, that number would have been a steal of a price. Nowadays, that's at the upper end of the range. Luke Dagobah Landing has come back down. One of my favorites from the original run. And I've got a couple of examples for Darth Revan, and to show you, don't overpay for this one anymore. While it is still expensive relative to the MSRP originally, in an auction, $51. And this one, looked to be pretty clean. I didn't see any issues with VC301 versus the buy it now for $85. I mean, you're talking a 60% price difference paying the buy it now price of, $85, which admittedly a while ago, this was $150, believe it or not, $125 to $150. Now it's $85 in a buy it now versus an auction, which is $51. So aim for that $50 number if you're still looking for VC301 and have been patiently waiting for it to come back down a little bit. But $51 is about the correct price to pay in an auction. Next up, we had a punched example of VC64 Princess Leia slave outfit, and this is the first of 3 or 4 Leias that sold, but this is the Revenge of the Jedi with the prototype FET offer, so the retail version. This seller had 3 available, 2 did sell at $200, 1 still available. Again, about the going rate for a punched example, $250-ish for an unpunched. We had, from the same seller, a Princess Leia Bespin VC111. That one sold for $120. I think you could really aim for about $100 for Leia, but this one was a really nice looking example that was unpunched and super, super clean card. So if you're willing to pay a 20% premium to get that ultra minty, then go for it, man. You know, no harm, no foul. Then here is the start of a bunch that sold from Power Droid. And to round out our Princess Leia's, this is the Princess Leia Sandstorm outfit, VC88. Obviously, Power Droid tends to command pretty strong prices for his because they are case fresh and in star cases. But $120 for Leia Sandstorm outfit. They also had the Nikto Skiff Guard, unpunched original issue. That one was $120 as well. Forlom from the Celebration exclusive 2-pack with Zuckuss. These are foil card backs. That one sold for $100, and that's a pretty nice looking one, VCP01. Then we had the Senate Guard, and this is an interesting comparison. I've got this ungraded, unpunched Senate Guard that sold for $55, and then to start our AFA graded, here is an AFA graded Senate Guard with the same card back image. There is also an alternate image Senate Guard from what I remember, but this one is the close-up version. And this one was an AFA 8.5, and you can see there front photo with rifle. So that one was graded though, and it sold for $66. So the ungraded for $55, the graded for $66, but you know, admittedly had $20 shipping versus this one that was $7 shipping. So let's call it about a $30 premium to get the AFA 8.5. I think if it had been a 9.0, you can probably pretty safely get that one closer to $100. But at least for an 8.5, I mean, it is already graded for that. That was a pretty good deal there. We had the Mandalorian and Grogu that was also an 8.5. This one, I think, was a Walmart exclusive. Yeah, Walmart exclusive. The Mando and Grogu Maldo Crease. That's a mouthful. This one is one of those deluxe cards. I did like this one a lot. I thought this one was a pretty cool, pretty innovative kind of card back at the time. $50 though for that. I mean, that's a bargain. $70 after shipping. Feels like a pretty fair deal for a graded one. Next up, we've got an uncirculated 9.25 Luke Farm Boy VC344. This one sold for a big number, but it was a gold level high grade uncirculated 9.25 for $160. And we had a Darth Vader Emperor's Wrath. It was a punched example, CAS 90. It was listed for $170, best offer accepted. I forgot to look up what it sold for, but got a couple of those here, which was, the other one was a 9.0 Haslab exclusive doll coin version of Yak Face. That one was listed for $325 and did sell, best offer accepted. So fairly high grade. And, you know, again, I think for a 9.0, $325, best offer accepted. Not a bad deal given that they go for $250-ish ungraded for a very clean looking Yak Face from the Katana sail barge. And then finally, I did want to show you that this seller over in Sri Lanka has sold a bunch of these sandcrawlers, so congrats to him. And this seller, as I mentioned in the last video, did reach out to me by Instagram to let me know that, hey, yes, I'm a legit person. They're going to get their items, I promise. But this was a pretty incredible one. And, you know, I hate to keep harping on it, but man, how awesome would this be to be a Haslab? But as you guys have rightly pointed out in the comments, the price point to make this work would be so prohibitive that I don't think it would ever back. It's just, you know, it's a very expensive proposition to drop $1,800 to $2,000 for something like this. And as a side note, they did drop the price a little bit from $2,000 to $1,800, but they've sold 5 of them. One's still available. Pretty interesting looking diorama. And while it doesn't have maybe some of the bells and whistles maybe of what we would expect to see from a Jawa sandcrawler, maybe like, you know, working treads for the, the actual, vehicle there. The interior design on this thing is substantial enough that I think that it's worth a look at if you're dying to have a sandcrawler in the correct scale for 3 3/4 inch figures. But man, that thing is a monster. Anyway, that's all I really had for this video. I hope you enjoyed this look at recent sales for the vintage collection and an update on the Haslab Gunship. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.